Well, hello, my friend. Welcome to another episode of the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. Today, I am super excited to introduce to you a new friend of mine. We met through a colleague where we had been connected with Lindsay House and been on her podcast. And then we listened to each other's podcasts and we just instantly clicked and then met. And so I'm super excited to have Dr. Laurie Bruce on my podcast today. She is a clinical psychologist, a mindfulness coach, and host of the Both Sides of the Couch podcast. With over 25 years of experience and a deep commitment to her own personal therapy, Dr. Bruce blends personal expertise with honest vulnerability to help people cultivate resilience, self-compassion, and courage to know that they are enough. Oh, I love that ending, to know that they are enough. I know so many of us grew up in households or environments where it was all about achievement and getting the next thing. And I think sometimes, even though that's a worthy thing, that could be come across as like, oh, does that mean I'm enough if I don't achieve those things? So I'm sure that you can help us unpack a lot of that on today's podcast. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sherry, for having me. I feel like when sometimes you just meet people and you just instantly connect and feel like this is my person. That's how I felt when we met. And so I'm so happy we get this opportunity to connect with each other today.
Yes. And tell us where you practice just to get started.
I am located just north of Cincinnati, Ohio.
Great, great. And so that's a lot of years in clinical psychology. And I love when I met you, just to let the listeners know, we had a lot to talk about, which we will get over to here. And I love how open-minded you were about certain things. So when I'm thinking of clinical psychologist, I think of like a lot of talk therapy. And that is helpful for a lot of people. And so what brought you into this mindfulness piece of it all?
Yeah, great question. So, my training is in a type of psychotherapy called DBT or dialectical behavior therapy, which is a type of talk therapy that's been around since the early 90s. But in essence, dialectical means the synthesis of opposites. So, two things can be opposites, but both be true at the same time. And as that looks in DBT, what that means is that the best kind of therapy is one in which we blend elements of both change and acceptance. And so change is kind of our typical cognitive behavioral therapy. How can we think about this differently? How can we act differently? So change oriented strategies of how can I become the best version of myself. But a kind of a twist is these acceptance oriented strategies. And these strategies are all about mindfulness, being in the present moment, learning to love and embrace even the painful parts of our lives. So I really resonated with this acceptance end of the continuum. And so a lot of my work is very heavily influenced by teaching people about this concept because most of us, and especially in the self-help realm, are all focused on the how can I change? How can I grow? How can I achieve? And there's not as much out there about, hey, how can I just learn to sit? How can I be alone with my thoughts? How can I learn to love and accept myself, flaws and all? And so that piece really, really resonated with me. And I've used that a lot in my work with folks.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That is so good. Mindfulness, a lot of times I hear the word awareness, and I like this acceptance, right? I think I had a lady come on the podcast, I think it was probably over 2 years ago now, Maya Salovitz, and she wrote this amazing book. And in there, she's like, you got to meet the person where they're at. And I think
Mhm.
that's a form of when I'm working with women, particularly like learning to accept where you're at. If your drinking is not where it wants to be, okay. If your weight isn't where it wants to be, right? It's not to say you don't have goals or you don't want better or different, but when you can accept where you're at It's like coming at it instead of like this massive struggle or this "I'll
Mhm.
never get there," or "It's too big of a bite to chew," like, "I just
Yes,
won't even
yeah,
get started. I'll just stay in this cycle of over drinking or punishing myself by, not selecting the right foods that make my body feel better or, more nourished or even
yes.
fueled correctly." So, yeah, I think that acceptance piece is so huge, and I think that if I'm thinking about it in a certain way, I'm thinking about that's how you can start to find that you are enough as you are, even if you want things to be different.
Yes, that those 2 things don't have to contradict each other. I am already enough. I am already perfectly imperfect. And if there are some things I wanna strengthen or improve, I can do that too. It's coming from a place of love and enoughness versus, and I don't know who quoted this, but I use it often, I should find out who said it, but you can't hate yourself into the best version of yourself. And I think that that really speaks to, if I want to be the best version of myself, it has to be coming from a place and space of love and embracing and accepting. That's the only way I'm going to get there. Hating yourself and saying, I'm not good enough, I have to achieve, I have to change, it never works. It just fuels us into that cycle of shame.
Yeah, yeah, and what you get good at in practice is kind of like what you become. So if you become I'm thinking of some clients who, like, hate the journey of losing weight, they hate it, oh my gosh. They think in their mind they have to eat boiled chicken and broccoli or, it has to be this painful, crazy,
Yes.
disgusting meals kind of way, and if they practice that, say it takes, I don't know, 6 months to get to their goal weight. If they keep hating themselves or hating the way they're going about it for 6 months, when they show up at that goal weight, what did they practice? Hate. Like, they're
Right.
not going to enjoy being in that body. They didn't
So
practice
true.
love and acceptance along the way. And then what I see is like, then they go revert right back because it was so grueling and it was so hard. And it was just filled with all these wrong emotions in their body that aren't
Mhm.
sustainable.
Absolutely, I love that example. Yes,
Yeah.
if our end goal is to have more love, have more peace, have more joy, then the journey has to look like that as well. It can't be a journey filled with deprivation and hunger, starvation, emotional and physical. We're not going to be able to get where we want to go through that path.
Right, right. I focus a lot on that in my programs. Let's pivot a little bit because I know you and I have dabbled in this space, and you can share as much or as little as you want. But I've heard talk therapy, and then sometimes for some people, psychedelics really break through where maybe talk therapy can't get you, or maybe you would have to. I heard a quote one time, you can spend 20 years in talk therapy or get there super like, not overnight, but really quick using
Mhm.
psychedelic work. So, as a psychedelic guide, and your own journey, what have you seen or where have you seen these substances to be very helpful? And if you wanna discuss your own journey, you can bring that into.
Yeah, such a good question. And I was so excited when I went to your website and saw all the different things. Well, which one should I watch first? Because there's so many fascinating topics. And I saw that you had met with another psychedelic coach. And so it was like, oh, I got to watch this one. And it was just such a great episode. So, one of the things, and really how I got into learning about psychedelics, was one of the curiosities that I always have had as a therapist is we can know things logically, but not necessarily feel them to be true. So, clients would say, all right, I know I'm a valuable person. Logically, I know that I'm worthy, but I don't feel worthy. Or logically, I suppose I'm lovable because all people are lovable, but I don't feel lovable. And no amount of cognitive behavioral therapy, no amount of notice your automatic thought, change your automatic thought, repeat the mantra, like none of that can always or consistently help us go from up here to here. And so to me, that is what psychedelics do best is speed up that process of knowing something to be true and then moving it into a feeling space. And so, with my own journey with psychedelics, I would say for many, many years, I've struggled with low self esteem. And I could tell you the origin of that and, all the reasons for why I didn't truly value love or accept myself. And logically, I could tell you, of course, I'm valuable, I'm important, I'm smart, all the things. But that didn't necessarily mean that I felt it. And for me, being able to be in that psychedelic space was very healing because it helped me to know. And it's almost like, I'll put it this way without going too woo. I do believe that we all knew at one point that we were valuable and lovable, but we forgot that life did something to make it so that we lost touch with that feeling of enoughness. And so for psychedelics for me was sort of that relearning process, remembering, yeah, I am lovable, I am important, I am worthy, and I don't have to get to this certain weight. I don't have to have this credential. I don't have to have this car, piece of clothing or whatever. My inherent sense of worth is it's it's there. It always has been. So that's what psychedelics has really done for me and what I hope in the future to be able to help more clients to be able to achieve.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love how you express that because it's true. In the psychedelic work, there is things that come up from your body. These like messages, they could be knowings, they could be images, they could arise in many different ways. And even in the experience, your mind might reject it or it might not. It just it's weird. The mind is kind of a bit different.
Mhm.
um,
Yes.
but doing the integration work, which is I love that we're integration coaches, right? Doing that integration work, it's like, oh, if you were able to experience it for a period of time or this came up in your journey, how can we use that and move that and embed that so now that becomes how you operate or how you see yourself in the world? Um,
I love
and
that word. I'm gonna start using embed that. That's so
yeah.
good. That's so true. I love that.
Yeah, and so it's not just like, "Oh, I had this great experience," and then poof, we don't take that and carry that forward, and that's why I think having integration coaches is, like, imperative because you've heard people like, "Oh, it's so life-changing or so mind-expanding or body-expanding," but man, yeah, I just wish I carried that feeling throughout my day. Yeah, so
Yes.
how do you work with people when they've had these, like, big experiences or and they knew something about or found out something about themselves in these experiences
Mhm.
and how to hold on to that, to embody
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And because I think that there's a lot of misinformation about what psychedelics can do, and there's so much emphasis placed on it being this sort of miracle medicines that poof, you take it and now you're healed and you're done. And that isn't really how it works. Obviously, there's incredible insights, incredible ahas, incredible experiences that we can have. But if we don't process them in our non-altered state, then we're not going to be able to embed them. So yes, so much is about that integration process, which is the fun part for me. And so the what I really try to work with people is helping them to understand what have been the barriers in the past to knowing that you are worthy, you are important? What have been those barriers in the past? And how can we make sure that moving forward, we're going to minimize those or be mindful of those? How can we remember this felt experience that you had of enoughness? Because once you feel it in your body, now I know it. Then it's just about, of course, we're going to forget, But then it's about reminding ourselves, going back into that feeling state of, I am enough. There's nothing I need to do to change or fix or be different. I am inherently worthy. And now knowing that, how do we wanna live our lives differently? I've had some clients who have quit jobs that they've been miserable in. I've had clients who have ended marriages or relationships because they realized it was no longer in alignment with the discoveries that they had made.
Mm.
So that's really a big chunk of what integration is what got in the way before and how can we make sure that moving forward, we're living our lives in alignment with the new awareness that we have.
Yeah. And I love how you said, like, you can have these big journeys or these ahas or these epiphanies, but in the coaching program that I'm enrolled in, our teacher makes it clear that, the day you do the journey is 10% of the work.
Mhm.
The other 90% that you're going to get happens days after. Because when you take a lot of these psychedelic medicines, they open up your neuroplasticity. Some of them create brain derived neurotropic factors. So you're growing new pathways. And that's not just that day, right? There's an afterglow or an after effect that
Mhm.
your brain is really plastic for a couple of days. And so you really want to be doing the practices to anchor in that embodiment, right? And take it through.
Absolutely.
And I love how we also talked about and started by saying, cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy can be effective, and that's all cognitive, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But if you can't anchor it down into your body and have your body know that, right? Then that's, becomes a block. Some people you can, get stuff down and anchor it in and that becomes the knowing. But I think psychedelics work the other way is they get in the body. And
Mm.
if anybody's read The Body Keeps the Score or The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, oh my gosh, like
Mhm.
it's not that the mind just trains the body has the ability to train the mind.
Yes. Oh,
And that
I love that. Yes.
and I
So
think that
true.
yes, and I think that's where psychedelics, it's like for me, like I could talk, and I'm
Mhm.
so cognitive, I'm so used to being in my head, but man, when I drop into my body and I hear the wisdom my body has,
Mhm.
that starts to restructure how I think about my thoughts and like, "Oh, my body had this wisdom, and this wasn't known to my brain because my brain never stops talking because 'cause I'm an open
Yes.
thinker."
It doesn't shut up long enough to learn anything.
So it's like, "Oh, we've known this all along, but your mind has just been, too active and overactive," and I've been also relying on my mental capacity for so much that sometimes I forget that there's, like, so much wisdom below the neck. Uh,
Yes.
yeah,
So
so
true, so true. I think that I love this sort of bottom up approach versus top down approach. And that really is what psychedelics are able to do in the right circumstances. And we've talked a lot about kind of the safe and ethical use. And right now, many psychedelics are not legal. And so, you and I are both a big proponent of making sure that in this space that people are safe and using the treatments ethically. However, so when we are in using psychedelics in a safe space, it is creating this bottom up approach. I'm changing the way that it feels so that I can now know things that maybe I've forgotten or even just have a new awareness of yeah, the world is okay. I'm going to be okay. The spiritual connections that people can make. I grew up and raised by atheists in a non-religious home, and my first actual spiritual experiences, not just sort of logically talking about what is God, does God exist, but a real felt sense of something bigger than me came from my psychedelic experiences.
yeah, they can be extremely spiritual. Yeah, for sure. Because you are getting in touch with your soul. You're getting in touch with everything on the inside. I think that's beautiful to point out. And just to echo what you've already said, yes, safe practices of psychedelics. We're not talking recreational. We're not talking about at the raves. We're not talking about,
Yes.
getting it from a local dealer that you don't know the source and all of that. No, no, no. We don't advocate for that. We want to make sure everything is safe, authentic, and that what the approach we're talking about is terribly a therapeutic approach. So therapeutic associated psychotherapy. And there's a lot of science behind that. I know the psychedelic realm, we had talked offline last time we met was, there's a lot of woo in that space and, things that maybe my brain's not really thinking is science based yet. And so I think that has steered me away in the past of
Mhm.
thinking of these as therapeutic modalities until I started seeing, MAPS, John Hopkins, these major institutions doing scientific research, right? And having
Yes.
hard outcomes rather than, well, that was a lot of fun. And,
Right. Yes. Yeah.
right. And everyone's wearing weird
Absolutely.
clothing and braiding their hair or whatever. Right?
Yes.
Like that was a
Yeah.
way too woo for my kind of straight laced thinking and
Yes.
upbringing. So,
Same.
yeah. So I
Same.
like it
Agreed.
that there are people doing this kind of level of science, bringing these modalities and providing a context where they are safe because, of course, anything could be unsafe. Tylenol could be unsafe, right? Taken in too much and the wrong patient and all of that. So yeah, I definitely want to echo that we're advocating for safe use of these agents. And then also, it's not just the use of them, but as we just talked about, it's the integration part.
Yeah.
Like that's where the magic happens. There's
Yes.
some magic in the medicine, but most of the magic comes from the integration process. And so finding a practitioner that can help you do that work so that you get the most value, you know?
Yeah. Oh,
You don't wanna
absolutely.
spend all that money, all that time, and then not get as much value as you can from that treatment modality. And sometimes the therapist, when you're sitting in, they guide you to, go a certain direction or dig up what you're there to dig up. So I loved
Mhm.
how you phrased all of that. I was gonna ask, like, when we're talking about psychedelic medicine, I seen the most reports of use around depression. Do you wanna speak to what modalities you find that work for depression that you've seen or how it really helps clients with depression?
Most of the research at this point is exploring how psilocybin, also LSD, but mostly how psilocybin can be a very profoundly effective treatment for both depression as well as anxiety. Lots of other issues as well, even addiction and smoking cessation and all these other conditions. But when it comes to depression, most of the research is around psilocybin. We're expanding into understanding the role that ketamine plays for depression. So far, what most of the research is saying is that ketamine can be profoundly helpful, but typically the gains that are made are short term. And so, however, unfortunately, most of the studies are looking at ketamine almost like a Prozac. If you take it, how long of alleviation of symptoms can you get? As opposed to looking at it and combining it with integration or with psychotherapy. What are the new lessons that we can learn? How are we going to move forward and take the knowledge and wisdom that we had from this experience and make changes and improvements to our lives? Right now, we don't have studies on that. It's a very medical model. And so, even though the research would suggest that ketamine is more short acting, I don't know if we can necessarily say that because we're not combining it with the psychotherapy piece.
That's a great point. I went to a ketamine clinic here because ketamine's legal in California, and I was looking at working at the ketamine clinic because I'm just fascinated by the properties of these medicines. And you're right, it was truly a medical model, which made me not want to continue to work there. You come in, get your infusion. A lot of these were war vets and, PTSD or
Mhm.
major trauma of some sort. And seeing that it was so super effective, but then they go home, there's not much
Mhm.
follow-up, and then they think, just come back for another dose. Like you said, it's like a Prozac, like, "Oh, I just keep
Yeah,
taking the medicine."
just keep doing this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the integration piece was missing, and I just wonder if that drug would be more effective in the model where they brought in the, integration piece before just dosing, 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 dosing to expect just the medicine to do the work rather than I think integration pulls in the client to do some of the work and make those behavior changes that they really want to see.
Yeah. It is so essential that we have just more research. I'm excited about what the future holds
Yeah.
for now that there's sort of society has permission in a way, and legally we have permission to start actually investigating the risks, of course, the negatives, the cons associated with these medicines, as all medicines have cons, even Tylenol, but also looking at, okay, what is the optimal dose? What is the optimal format for how you ingest the substance when you combine it with psychotherapy? What kind of psychotherapy? Like, there's just a million and one questions that we can start to explore that for a significant period of time we weren't even allowed to explore. So I think
True.
it's very exciting to think about all the potential new information that's going to come out as time goes on, and if medicines are legalized, that will open up even more opportunities for research.
Yeah.
But I agree 100%. I would not feel comfortable working at a place that just had this true medical model for any substance and that it wasn't integrating what people have learned from their experiences.
Right, right. It's similar to me that if you go on one of these GLP-1 agonists, right, for weight loss, an Ozempic, a Zepbound, Wegovy, whatever, but you're not doing the lifestyle things and you're not changing your behavior. So then when you do stop taking the medicine, what happens? The weight comes back on, right? So,
Immediately.
yeah, so I only wanna practice right, I only wanna practice in areas where the lifestyle changes are happening, right? You can't just rely on the drug to magically change you, otherwise you become dependent on that drug or that way of being, and I think a lot of people would need to be empowered by doing the lifestyle things because those ultimately are the healthiest for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. That's such a great metaphor because a lot of people are unfortunately taking the GLPs and just saying, "Well, it's a magic bullet. I don't have to do anything." But of course, we know that with that there's going to be loss of muscle and
Mm,
probably bone density and all sorts
yeah.
of risks associated with that. So,
Yeah.
there's always, trying to find that integration of both the biological component as well as the lifestyle and the mindset, making sure that all of those are aligned.
Yeah. I look at the drugs as like, okay, give me the shot in the arm that I need, the boost
Mhm.
that I need, right?
Yeah,
And to start feeling better, to start getting results, and then help me maintain that, without having to rely on the medicine over time. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. I know when we last spoke, I would like to unpack well, before I guess we leave the psychedelic topic, I have seen in my own experience helping people with psychedelics where it truly has changed their dependency or their habit mode brain around alcohol. And
Mhm.
as long as, it's not just the medication, it's the integration process that I walk them through, but it really can change things quicker than I've seen with just using a cognitive process. Now, sometimes patients, or I call them clients, not patients, but they just really will take to the cognition piece. But then those people who are just like, I'm not getting it. I know this is bad for me, but why do I keep doing it? Why does my hand keep reaching? And bringing in psychedelics to help with that and break that. So they get that wisdom from their body and they feel it. And now they're like, oh, now I know it. And just be honest with the audience is I got to a place where my alcohol content and consumption was relatively low compared to where I started. Maybe not low for some people who don't drink at all. So just, dabbling in around 4, 6 drinks a week, sometimes 4 or 6 drinks a month. And then after doing psychedelics and kind of just asking my body, do I really need this alcohol? Is it really something I'm hanging on to? And my body just said, no, you're ready to let it go. And
Mm,
after that, I have absolutely no desire. No
mm,
desire. I mean,
yeah,
I
that's
don't
nice.
crave it. I don't look at any. my body rather water or just something else than alcohol. So I never thought I would be in that camp of no alcohol or sober or whatever tagline or label you want to use. I just never wanted it that bad or wanted to be there, but my body wanted me there. And
Yeah.
that's what it told me. And I think, how miraculous is that? Like, so thankful for that experience.
I love that for you. And lest the listener think, "Oh, it was a magic pill or a magic fix." We want to remember that you had to have sort of an openness to that possibility. You had to have an awareness of what your body was telling you. Your body can be shouting at you all sorts of things, but if we're not listening, it doesn't matter. So you were listening, you were paying attention, you were aware, you were incorporating that. That's all this stuff, that had to happen in order for you to have this experience.
Yeah. So I just want the listener to know I use the cognitive approach to get down that low. And then I use the bottom up approach to like, I guess I just don't want it anymore. Like, yeah,
Yes.
it's just so fascinating how we
Yes.
go. And I love just sharing experiences because when people get stuck and they're like, oh, I don't know what to try or what's working, it's really helpful to understand where other people have been and what's worked for them.
Yeah.
So speaking of alcohol and maybe just any type of addiction, or if that's too strong of a word for somebody, any type of like negative pattern that we're in. I would love to get your take on AA or these 12-step programs and if you've recommended them, if you tried them yourself, or if you have a philosophy around them.
Yeah. My number one philosophy for my clients is whatever works for you. Okay. So I've certainly worked with a ton of folks who have utilized 12 step and it has been life changing for them. So I would never tell a client, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. Whatever works for you is what we want to do. I have also worked with a ton of clients where 12 step has not been helpful for them. And so in that case, then I really try to work with clients on this idea of harm reduction. Okay, how can we reduce the harm, whether it's alcohol, whether it's cannabis, whether it's food. My area of specialty is in binge eating disorder and overeating, stress eating, binge eating. So, in that realm, I've had some folks who've gone to OA or Overeaters Anonymous and felt like that was life changing for them. And again, I feel like who am I to say that that isn't working for you if you feel that it is? But for a lot of folks, that isn't the answer for them. And that it can also runs the risk of creating this deprivation mentality. You're not allowed to have any. It's bad if you do. It's seen as a relapse, a slip up, something that you have to go and kind of let everybody know, yeah, I slipped up. And not everybody benefits from that, that it actually, for some folks, increases their anxiety and gets them into this binge restriction cycle where I restrict, restrict, restrict until I can't do it anymore. And then I binge. And again, that can be on any substance, including food. So I teach a lot to my clients about mindfulness and intuition, intuitive eating, even intuitive drinking, if that's a thing. Like, what do you think is a healthy amount for you? And can we explore what that would look like? So that's generally my philosophy on, 12 step. That's how.
Lori, I love that. I love that. And here is why. Because if I go into a room of people and I can't do something, instantly that makes me feel like A, I'm bad because I'm doing it. B, if I slip up, there's shame.
Yep.
It's kind of like I remember my mom going to Weight Watchers and they had to weigh you on the scale. And
Yes.
she would like sweat bullets and tell me and
Mhm.
come home and say, "Oh my gosh, I can't go to the meeting because I know I'm not going to come in under like
Oh my gosh.
if it
Yep.
works for you, I that's fabulous, but I just see so many people come out damaged or more shame or feeling behind the 8 ball. Like, I hear all kinds of cliches, right? Like, "Oh,
Mhm.
yes, I just wanna be like the person who shows up and does it perfectly all the time." So I just, like, hate this all or nothing mentality and this perfectionism, and it's almost like an
Yes.
achievement, and I get my medallion, and I get my reward, and then I get it taken away, or if this
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like a punitive process, whereas I feel when you just do harm reduction like you and I both practice, it's like, let's look at what makes sense for your lifestyle. Let's
Mhm.
make sense of, like, can we just get it to acceptance where you're at now? And what does progress look like for you in the short term, and work
Yes.
that. I know if somebody came at me wanting me to stop drinking, I would push away, I'd knock them. I'd probably get in a fist fight over it. Like, that's not happening. Don't take it
Mhm.
away. I don't know why I had so much fear about leaving it behind, but it's kinda like, when you try to give away your clothes or something, sometimes there's that emotional component that you're like, "Oh, I'll just still hang on to it."
That's right, I might need it
Yes,
someday. Yes,
yes.
yes.
So, letting go of things can be really hard for people, but if you're willing to let go of, like, 1 piece of clothing or 2 pieces of clothing from your closet and, or alcohol, if you're willing to let go of 1 drink or just 2 drinks, like, let's just start there. Just
Yes,
start there,
yes.
and we don't have to go into shaming and being it perfect in a certain way and all of that, because I know for some people that is not going to be helpful for
It's
them,
not gonna
so
work. It's just
yeah.
not gonna work. And I think as a coach, as a therapist, that takes a level of humility to be able to say, "I don't have the answers for your life. I'm here to help you figure out what your answers are, but who am I to tell you what you should and shouldn't do or what your version of health should look like?"
Yes.
So there's humility in that and being able to say, "Hey, I'm an expert in the science of this or the research of this, but you are the expert of you." I must say that to my clients every single day. "I know, I'm the expert of me." But it's true. I mean, I really truly believe that you are the expert on you and I'm here to help you discover that, believe that, know that to be true. And your version of health is going to look different than your best friends, your sisters, your spouses. Your version of health is your own. And that's, I think, what the best guide, the best coach, the best therapist can do for their clients.
Absolutely. I think that's so well said. I always tell my clients, like, don't try to become me. Don't put me on a pedestal. Don't think you have to replicate the way I did it. The only reason I
Yes.
share is to encourage you that it took me a long time to get here. And I tried things, and I tell you what I knew wouldn't resonate for my body. And I stood by that. But that kept me on the pursuit of, like, okay, if that's not going to work, what is? And I think looking and continuing that pursuit of what's going to feel right, what's going to be something I can do over the next month or week or whatever, and just not giving up, right? And keep leaning into, I'm ready for a change. I'm just not ready for a big, big change. I want some small changes, some small wins. Prove to me that I can do it. And it's more me proving to me I can do it. And so I think
Yes.
having that right support is, oh, so invaluable. It's priceless to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
priceless. Yeah. Well, Dr. Laurie, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Let my listeners know if they want to work with you, how they can find you and get in touch with you.
Yes, the easiest way is my website, drlauriebruce.com, which I'm assuming will be in the show notes. And also take a listen to my own podcast where I talk about all things related to therapy and mental health. And that is called From Both Sides of the Couch.
It's a great podcast. I loved your podcast on overwhelm with Lindsay and all the things.
Mm.
So, yes, please take a listen to Dr. Laurie's podcast. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and sharing your wisdom with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, listeners, thanks for tuning in today, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Health Habits and Epic Living podcast. If you're ready to take the next step to improve your health, wellness, and lifestyle goals, head over to www.epicyou.com and sign up for my weekly newsletter. Again, that's EPICYOU.com. Please note that the information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice.